Should we get started? Okay. My name is Inge Vanderkruis. I'm with IU Maurer School of Law in Bloomington, Indiana. And I will talk today with you, or have a conversation, I hope, because this is more of a brainstorming session about what we did for our rural externships. I don't have too many slides, but they kind of help me keep on track. I'll first tell you a little bit about our situation in our school, so you have a sense, because I know June has a different situation. Meg and Sean probably have different situations. Our school is about an hour and a half away from Indianapolis. It used to be an hour, but there is a huge highway road project going on that will be interfering with our students' commute for the next 5 years at least, and it's already taken several years. So we've become all of a sudden a little bit more rural than we had anticipated. We are in a small town location, I think similar to Athens, vis-a-vis Atlanta. We have 4 law schools within our state. One is in Indianapolis and has the capital placements there, and then 2 are in northern Indiana. We are in southern Indiana, so we have the whole south to ourselves, and it's mostly rural. The focus of our employment placement, postgraduate employment placement, is 40% in-state, 60% out-of-state, and most employment is clustered around urban areas. So we don't have, I'm mentioning this because we do not have a pipeline from, which you are probably going to talk about more, from rural externships to rural placements. A small number of our students go to smaller cities than 100,000 inhabitants. We have a full-time JD's program only. We don't have a part-time class, and LLMs, which is a separate program for mostly international lawyers. And about 95% of our classes are live in Bloomington, so we don't do much online at all in our school. The school size is 500 to 600 JDs, and we have about 150 to 175 externships per year, of which 20% are rural. So I don't know what your situation is, but I know, June, you're 2.5 hours away from the big city.
We're 2 hours from Des Moines,
Okay, yeah.
almost, and then another 3 hours from Chicago.
Okay, and that's for us, it's 4 hours, not that big.
Well, I'm in Kansas City, so
Yeah.
it is actually a real city.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also a federal city, so
Yeah.
I have all of the federal agencies there. So that's really helpful to me.
Yeah, 20
You
minutes from
know,
downtown.
Missouri has lots of rural,
Mhm.
and but so far, I mean, I'm interested in this because in part with Sean and,
Sure.
and other places in Missouri, they need lawyers, and so far I don't have students who,
Yeah.
like I ask them like, where are you from? And they'll say like, Southwestern Missouri. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, do you want to go back? Nope, nope. I want to stay in Kansas City. I was like, you sure? You know, they're like, no, you know, this is good. You know, and so I don't have that, but I have those employers calling me.
Yeah.
You know, the prosecutor's office saying like, you know, we have a really good program here. I go, okay.
Okay.
And like, I don't have, you know, they're not actually my coins to like, oh yeah, I'll give you a student.
Uh-huh.
They're like,
And the challenge is that I find that, especially for alums, they kind of think that
right,
my
right,
job
they
should be able to-
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
that all I have to do is say the word is like, no, you're really gonna love working there, you know, and then the student will say, oh yeah, I'll sign up.
Yeah. That's, is that similar to all of your situations? I'm not sure where everybody's from.
I'm at the University of Alabama. We're in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which is a big college, well, small college town. We're about an hour away from Birmingham and 2 hours away from Montgomery, which is the state capital.
So it's a little similar to the situation. How about you, June?
So I'm in Windsor, Ontario, which is right across the border from Detroit. And when I had proposed that we start an externship program, the president had not been elected. And then he issued the executive order. So I assumed, oh, we're right across the border from Detroit, which is like a mecca of placements. And then the executive order came down, and it's affected all our ability to cross the border, and we have a huge number of Arab students, it's the largest like, so it's just been a huge issue. And so I'm interested in this because there's Toronto, which is 4 hours away. And most of our students are from the Greater Toronto area, which is like, you know, a few million people. Anyway, I'm just trying ideas from you.
Yeah, well, from me, I think we all need the ideas from each other because we are all in different situations. You're in Minneapolis?
Yeah, so we're in Minneapolis, and kind of two reasons. We have a similar issue where we have 3 law schools in Minneapolis, and that's a lot of law schools and graduating law students for the jobs that are in the area. But yet, when students come to Minneapolis, nobody wants to leave and go back home to the rural areas. So we have a ton of employers outstate and in the rural sort of surrounding states that are looking for students, and the students don't want to go. But we also have this hybrid program where we have students come to, they do 50% of their instruction online and 50% in person, and so they come to us in Minneapolis for Minneapolis St. Paul for a week every semester, but then they do the rest of their instruction on home, you know, at home, wherever that is, maybe in the middle of Iowa, or we have a student in Germany, or, you know, they're all over the place, and they intend to stay where they are, and we have an externship program for them, and a career services office that is trying to, from our office in St. Paul, trying to help them find externships in the middle of Idaho, or, you know, wherever they are, so that's been a little bit of a challenge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi.
Sorry, I can't see you.
I'm Lauren.
Lauren,
I'm
yeah.
from Ohio Northern University. We're actually in a town of 5,000 called Ada, Ohio. So we are in a rural area ourselves.
Your town is 5,000 people?
Ada, Ohio. Yeah, our town is 5,000. We have 2 stoplights.
Wow.
We win over, there's one law school that Vermont has no stoplights, right?
Ah, yeah.
So we win, we have 2. But we're about an hour from Toledo, an hour from Dayton, an hour from Fort Wayne, Indiana, 2 hours from Cleveland, 2 hours from Columbus. So we're in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of it all. We're about 2 hours from Detroit.
Okay.
And actually most of our students, whether they like it or not, come from small towns and go back to small
Oh,
towns.
they do. Okay, so that would be interesting for you to read. And
Sylvia, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm from Gainesville, Florida, University of Florida. So we're about 2 hours from Jacksonville, Tampa, Orlando, 5 hours from Miami. Most of our students from South Florida. So they all actually, they want to go back. So the issue we have is actually trying to make sure that they can get their credits, their experiential credits, some of them at home or at school versus some sort of out in the, when they go back and trying to make sure that we do it during the academic year to a certain extent. But they all want to go back to Miami. They want to leave Florida.
And you and Cameron? Yeah.
No, Tallahassee.
Yeah, so I'm from Naples, Florida. This is where our law school is, Auburn School of Law. We are approximately 2 hours from Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, and then also 2 hours from Tampa, or 2 major markets.
So do any of you have summer programs? Okay.
But we may not in the future.
Okay. You do? Okay. Because that makes it a little bit easier, at least in Indiana. We have some people who go back home in part to save money on rent. But that's the ideal time to do that. Okay, I just wanted to know where you all were located because I think we have different situations. These are externship programs, and I'm not going to focus on the bottom 2 because the Stewart Fellowship is an international summer externship, and then we have a Washington D.C. program away. Does anybody have remote programs? Yeah. Where do you?
We also have a DC program.
DC and.
We let them go anywhere outside of
Oh,
Gainesville.
you do?
That's what we
Okay.
do.
Yeah,
Okay.
I let them go, but only a few. I have some people in St. Louis, but it's not.
Not far away.
And I have somebody in Cherokee County. Yeah, so
And those are full-time placements, like full-time
no, it's
semester?
summer, so
Okay.
it's and we're still like, you know, you can do 3 to 6 credits, but it
Yeah.
it doesn't come up to full time.
Yeah. Okay.
Comes in super.
So ours are in public interest externships in civil and criminal, and then intellectual property is a very small program that started as an externship program and is now developing into or has developed into a clinic. So the externship program is almost dissipating into the clinic. And then we have a judicial externship and private externships, which we suspended for a while because of all the lawsuits, but that has now become a program again because the school has allowed paid externships, and that's one way for us to get more rural placements in the areas around us. Since we are employing people mostly in larger urban areas after law school, and the students are of course very interested in going to Indianapolis where all the federal placements are and the state placements, I had to think a little bit, why would I expand the rural program and spend all my time trying to find placements for students? But as with a lot of your students, our students were starting to complain about the commute. They were complaining about the time in their schedule because there were a lot of issues with not being able to go 2 or 3 times a week for 2 hours because there's this interesting hearing going on where they had helped with the depositions, and now they can't go to the actual hearing because it's too far to drive. So the cost was becoming also insurmountable. I actually almost missed my flight yesterday. Normally it's an hour drive. It took me 2 hours and a half to get to the airport. So I finally can sympathize with my students that what they are going through. I've been joking with them that they should listen to bar preparation tapes, but I think that doesn't go over well. At least I haven't heard any complaints anymore. So we have found traditional opportunities, and by that I mean the prosecutor's office, the public defender's office, the city corporation, and the county legal department, the judges in the counties, and some not-for-profits. But we also have an increased access to justice focus through 2 faculty members in the 1L program that I will talk about in a minute. And we are trying to get through the pro bono projects that are student organized and led, as in other schools, we are trying to get those going into externships as well. And we are, as many other rural areas and urban areas, hit by a tremendous economic and opioid crisis in southern Indiana, around our county, but not in Bloomington yet. So that has posed enormous demands on our local legal institutions, especially the courts, and they are not getting any increases in the budget. But at least it's gotten the attention of the Indiana Supreme Court and the court administration, as well as our university, and I will talk about that in a minute. So the challenges for the students are commutes. We have no public transportation whatsoever, so it's all carpooling. A lot of our placements don't offer parking in Indianapolis, and students find that to be an expense that they can't carry, especially in the summer. Lodging is difficult. We actually have some 3Ls who have moved in their 3L year to Indianapolis in order to then commute to Bloomington for classes. And the funding by our school is very limited. We do have some work study money that goes into the Indiana Legal Services Office, and have PILF and small stipends that are funded by alumni, but it's really small, and students have to compete for them, and not half of the students who apply get them. So I assume that you have other issues if you are 2 hours away from every city around you in Florida. What do you do? Or what are the challenges the students face for you?
Oh, in Ohio.
Oh, in Ohio, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, all of those things that you mentioned are definitely problems, and, weather, can also be a major problem, so.
Oh, yes.
Especially the spring semester, students tend to not want to be going 2 hours away in the spring. In the fall, it's usually okay, but it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah. So do you find that it's more difficult to find students to fill the rural placements than the other way around?
No, so because the rural placements are closer in proximity, in Ohio, every county has a courthouse. And so we have, 8 counties within an hour drive of tiny counties in Ohio. And so, yeah, I can fill the prosecutor's offices, the judicial externships, public defenders, legal aid, where there is legal aid. Those offices, and then the county offices, those get filled first always. And I always have more placements than I have students.
Okay. We did do also until this traffic jam problem has now lasted, I mean, it's pathetic, but has lasted for 3 years. And so I'm in a position where I have to go out and shop for more placements in the rural areas, even though that's not the majority of our students or externship placements. But so we have had challenges to recruit students. But I worked very hard to explain to them how many benefits there are. And we have had students who have had tremendous mentorship in those placements and have helped me recruit students for rural placements as well. So the low-hanging fruits are traditional nonprofit and government opportunities. Then we have also university positions that we are taking full advantage of, or fuller advantage of than in the past. Has anybody got university placements? Yeah,
It's in our medical center as well.
Okay,
Because we have
yes.
academic medical centers, that's a really good place for placements.
Yeah, that's popular in our university too, but they have to drive to Indianapolis for the medical campus. Yeah, and then companies, we have a couple of companies that we have arrangements with, especially for IP externships. We do partnerships through clinics as well, and I will talk about that here. We've gotten our school has reduced our clinical offers by 1 clinic, and we used to have 6. So we are now expanding individual clinical projects based on interests of faculty members. And the habeas practice is a faculty member, Seth Long, you might remember him, and a local attorney who's got a tremendous, sorry?
He makes total sense, right?
Yeah. I think there are a couple of other faculty members, and I'm interested in doing pro se work for the federal courts in Indianapolis. So we are kind of individually each working on a project to expand that. The access to justice focus, I'm sorry I'm going through this, but I want Sean to have time too. The access to justice focus is something that is also based on individual faculty members. Victor Quintanilla is one of our civil procedure professors who has taught and who teaches an access to justice component in his procedural class, where students last year were sent out to find their own service learning project, and then presented those in class. They went to a symposium within the school for those programs to present their projects. And I have to admit, I'm a public interest person, but I was very skeptical that this would be working in a small town like Bloomington. But they expanded to the counties and have gotten tremendous feedback from and offered help to not-for-profits, to boards, to different locations. And those 1Ls from last year are now in their 2L year running a project management program with 1Ls to do this. Needless to say that this costs money, and Victor did get a grant to offset the costs a little bit. This year we are doing something different, and he's also involved in this. We have a legal professions class in our 1L spring semester where the access to justice component has been moved to. And because Victor got a grant from the Indiana state court system to study access to the courts, and we are running a pilot project project in the counties surrounding Bloomington, which are rural counties, to address access to the courts for homeless, veterans, and mentally disabled people. The students, what the students get out of this is basically they are trained to do the field work. So they do interviews with social service providers, they do interviews with the courts, they do interviews with the public defenders and the prosecutors' offices, and report back. And then they will be, some of them will be selected for follow-up as a research assistant to this project with the faculty member. While we are doing outreach to the pilot counties, I'm also piggybacking to provide externship placements in those counties, because our students, I don't know where this happened, maybe it is also the elections that have played a role in this, but the students are extremely turned on to now go to rural places and work on these projects and do legal work there as well. So as I said, we need to find more placements that way. And then we also have paid externships that our school has approved any paid externship, as long as it's vetted by me, of course, to make sure that it's in compliance with the ABA. So we can now rely on alumni in the area around us in all the counties who are in private practice, can't afford full-time paralegal or assistant or an associate, and are recruiting our students to come and work for them. So that's also new as of this year. And then in our university, this happened to be coming up just recently, but we have internal interdisciplinary grants that have been offered to tackle the problems in the world. And our world is now, we are surrounded by opioid infested areas that have devastated some of the southern Indiana counties tremendously in every way. So every school is allowed to apply for grants and to help with this. And the idea is to build a judicial externship program with the county judges much more extensively than we have done so far, and then hopefully get some feedback and money from the state as well, the state court system, who's addressing the problems the judiciary has in those counties, to see if we can sponsor together or co-sponsor clerkships in rural counties after graduation for 1 year. So that's our program so far, and it has required a lot of energy. We only have the grant of Victor Quintanilla at the moment, and he's using that for his research, obviously, but the budget has not grown. We don't have more staff to do this, as probably all of you deal with. And so I'm curious to hear how all of you address these issues, and I would like to assemble some information so we can distribute that afterwards.
We've been, we're trying to expand some of our clinical programs. Last week I was at a conference for veterans clinics that the National Association of Law School Veterans Clinics Consortium. And so I think that's going to be one place, but the issue with clinics is when we expand it, you only get about 16 spots in a year, so it can help. But I think one of the other things we're talking about doing is taking our clinics and creating kind of externships that are associated with clinics, whereas the clinics will be more direct representation, the externs will be doing sort of support work. But we may need, but that might involve hiring adjuncts, because I'm not sure that the clinical faculty will be willing to take on.
And so you would have 2 tiers of students
In a clinic, but so let's say we have there's also an issue in Florida where you have in order to, student practice rules are really difficult, so there's a strong dividing line between those who can practice and those who can't. So we
it's
know,
not necessarily a class system.
no, you know,
I mean,
it's,
it is,
it is, but it's,
regulatory.
yes, it's
rather
right,
than,
yeah,
school
exactly.
imposing.
Yeah, so I assume they'd have fewer credits as well, you know,
Mhm.
maybe a 3-credit externship doing research in family law versus the student who's actually representing the clients and
Mhm.
going through the divorce and custody.
That's interesting. So your externship would come before the clinic or after?
Well, I mean,
It's very
probably,
discussing.
yeah, you probably want to do it before, because once the student got certified as a certified legal intern who could actually represent people, they wouldn't want to go back to the extension.
Yeah.
So, but usually they can't even get their CL. It takes months in Florida, so they probably won't be able to do it till at least their second semester, second year,
Mhm.
sometimes not to the third year to do a true clinic.
We have advanced clinic hours, but those are one-on-one, and the students are actually helping, the advanced students are helping the first generation or first semester clinics. Yeah. So Gemma,
Yes.
what are you doing now with Toronto being far away and Detroit inaccessible?
We do have some remote placements, so there's one in the Northwest Territories, some at Six Nations of the Grand River, like different reserves. So the students, I don't know, it's a like the students leave in their car, so just if that's a problem for lots of students, and it automatically leaves out some students more than others. I don't know. I don't have a great answer. I wish I did, but yeah, some of them travel, a lot of the students travel to where they're from and then sort of tack on their hours so they can stay at home, so they don't have to rent a different place. Yeah, I'm just trying to be creative, I guess.
Yeah.
I was hoping everyone else would
I
be willing
know,
to
I
answer.
know. We've been talking on the phone a couple of times about that too. So what are you doing with your students? You mentioned that they stay overnight the night before in order then to work 1
Yeah,
or 2
we
days?
have some alums that have volunteered to host students.
Mhm.
They are in Des Moines. We have a dorm associated with, we acquired a business school in Des Moines, and it had a dorm. So that's available to us, but it would cost money. I think most popular students Airbnb. But one thing I almost hate to put out there, but it's something I've been thinking about, is does it make sense for students to telecommute?
Yeah, and that's.
I hate to open up a can of worms. I have a flat right line rule. But, you know, in certain placements, I have some where they do pure appellate work, brief writing, and then they argue a case. So, you know, maybe you would do more of the appellate brief writing and research at home, but make sure you're there for the mooting and argument.
We had one, so a student was working for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and which is in Jacksonville, an hour, 2 hours away. And they wanted to have her there, but they were doing renovations, so they didn't have space. And I was like, well, you have to be there. But what we did was say, okay, you can front load a bunch of work, and then you have to be there solidly for 3 or 4 weeks at the end of the semester. Which, you know, it was, you know, it was still a burden, but it at least said, you know, I wanted her to have FaceTime. That's what I was worried about, sort of the lack of interaction.
I think there's just incident conversations you have in the hallway
Yeah,
that you miss out on if you
and learning how
aren't
people
there.
actually practice, you know, seeing all that. So that was, so I mean, in that, it was a sort of a special circumstance because they said that in the future they'd probably be able to have students on site. And we wanted to give, I mean, they all want sports law.
Yeah, yeah.
So we had it, like, all right, I'll do it. That's my life, all right, I'll do it. No follow-up.
The other thing is we do allow students to go away and to propose a placement, and they can earn up to 14 credits, which will give them a semester away. And, but we have just only a handful at a time.
I think that sounds like it's the thing you have to do, is you have to let them have
Yeah.
full time, if they can do it
But
right.
it's really rare that they're able to do it because they need to
Right,
take
takes
this
a
for
lot.
journals and
Yeah.
record. So they give up a lot of their extracurricular activity, so you have to really want it.
We have one, but we're like prepping them, starting with their 1L a year. If you want to do this during your
Yes.
second semester, 3L a year, you have to, you need to be prepared. You need to take all your required classes, you have to have your writing requirement done. And they can get their journal credits long distance, I think.
Yes, and the 3L year.
Really? You can't? See, ours can, so they can do that.
We have that with our DC program too.
Yeah,
And
so
we
they're-
pick to do it in the fall semester
Okay.
because then they have to come back one more semester. And it's also a good time to network.
We chose spring so that in theory they could be there, hopefully find a job. It's not for the students who have, the good 2L summer associate jobs, because they're gonna get a job. It's the ones who can't do that, so we want to put them where they want to
Well,
work.
and if they've practiced their second semester 3L year, they can be certified to continue practicing through
Right.
after graduation.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, if they have a CLI, that's sort of, there's some weird rules.
So what do you do with the teaching in your remote programs?
Canvas,
Video conference.
Video conference? Okay.
Canvas, because we had 62 students away this semester. Yeah. Wait, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it's a total of 62, maybe 32. There are a lot.
Okay.
I think there were 60 actually. We've gone from 9 to 30 to 60 over 3 years in the semester away program.
So it's asynchronous.
Her class, yes, it is asynchronous, but she has like check-ins with them on a fairly regular basis. I'm not sure.
On an individual basis?
I have no idea how.
Yeah.
I haven't asked.
I would have somebody fly out every 2 weeks to DC to teach a class.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they get some online work as well. Our DC class is hosted in a firm of one of our alumni, and I'm not gonna go over it, I promise, of one of our alumni, and then the faculty member who's in charge of the program invites groups of alumni in DC to come and network with the students, so that they, each subject she teaches in a class has alumni with that area of law.
See, we kind of wanted to do that, but the way Florida is, if we're in Gainesville, we're still 6 hours from Miami. So even going back to Miami, where somebody would want to go, they can't just commute to Miami.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to be in so many different places, and we said, fine, you're going to be long distance no matter what, might as well go where you want to work.
Yeah.
We do a similar thing in DC where we have 2 alums up there who co-teach a class that meets once a week. So the students are getting 10 hours of credit from their externship placement and then 2 hours of credit with this once a week class. And we were lucky to have them like on the ground. I go up and visit 3 times a semester, but we have people on the ground who see them every week, which is really helpful.
That's great.
How many people do you have participating? Right now we have 9, which I think is the biggest class we've had so far.
Yeah, ours is also. I don't want to, I know we haven't come up with the big solutions, but I will pass around the sheet so we can all put our emails and I'll take the type of the notes and combine it with yours. Because the trick is for us in our state is also finding alumni who want to work as Atticus Finches. So, give the floor. Remove my background.